Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. Good to see you. Appreciate you reaching out and discussing PLANCON. Obviously, I have a couple questions on PLANCON. And you want to do it in a speed round?
Sure.
All right. So first, you guys are looking for another moratorium on PLANCON when we just lifted it last session. Why moratorium, and what are you looking to do with the program?
So, I mean, obviously, PLANCON is on the top of a legislative agenda in relation to what has to be addressed. And, I will share from the superintendent perspective and thinking of experience, why PLANCON has become such a huge issue is because school districts were trying to find ways to fill budget gaps. So first, we're hoping to, with the investment of additional funds into school districts, it won't be as critical an issue going into the new school year. Second, and I think you and I have had this really pointed conversation. We have to figure this out, and we have to work together. The governor, his team, Department of Education, and the legislature. We have to sit down and have a real targeted conversation around PLANCON and hopefully establish a fix for the long run for our schools.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems that's been ignored for decades, and now we're where we're at. Last session, the Fiscal Code, we did some language to require school districts to submit their final paperwork, or they move back to the line for those that were supposed to be funded. How is that working, and are we going to see any more dollars flow to school districts through that mechanism?
So we've absolutely put some of that into place. When you're looking at a cost, a cost revenue standpoint, it's, in some cases it's not as significant as it looks on paper, only because it takes one big project to absorb the cost, but it has made, it's established an opportunity and process to create a sense of urgency for schools to take it seriously in terms of submission of documentation, and that has been a real positive around that.
Okay. And why wasn't there an increase in PLANCON? Of all the increases in the education line item, the authority rentals and sinking fund was flatlined.
So I guess part of the philosophy is, looking at the root of and identifying areas in which schools, felt they would, where they needed the additional investment, and where we place that investment. So it's one of those areas that definitely had come up in conversation, but investment being, not infinite in the sense, this is definitely one of those areas, as I shared, we've identified as something that needs to be worked on together.
Yeah. And I don't expect you to answer this now because I don't think anybody actually has this by memory, but can you provide the committee an updated list of schools where they're at in the project and the steps? That'd be great. Another thing you mentioned is education funding. I went through the severance tax bill, and I found only 2 mentions of education. On page 1, under the brief description and then the title, Education Reinvestment, I see about $245 million of projects. Through testimony, we had about $55 million that's going to come out of that from bond issues as well. So that's a total of $300 million. I'm curious how we're going to, the government wants to put $1 billion severance tax money into education. With $300 million coming out, how do we get to $1 billion?
And that's one of those areas where it's very comprehensive. Although the governor has explained, he sees the severance tax as an opportunity, a fair severance tax, an opportunity to invest in public ed. But it's where the budget's much more comprehensive in terms of a more comprehensive approach to funding and investment. I can definitely pull the specifics and share with the committee.
Because this doesn't actually dedicate any money to education at all. I mean, there's no, and when you look at the property tax relief program, the same thing. When you look at the property tax language itself, page 6, it's a certification by the Secretary of Budget. When you look at the tax reform code, it's a similar designation. Now, the tax reform code on page 98 is very interesting because it basically says the Department of Revenue shall make equal monthly transfers. There's no dedication about how much money is supposed to be going into that account. And then it says at the end, the budget office shall annually certify the amount. There's no dedication whatsoever. So if I'm in the school district looking at these three bills, where's the money? Normally, through the severance tax, it's dedicated. 8 million county conservation districts, 1.2 PA fish boat. Everything's dedicated except for property tax and education funding.
Absolutely. So we'll dig deeper and absolutely discuss and share our findings with everyone. If I can take a half a step back and share the specifics around PLANCON. So first, we will share the list, but we're working on a way to make that list available to everyone as we discussed.
I know, it's very good.
Transparent.
Love the transparency.
And available to everyone. Yes.
I would just, when we're looking at a $12.5 billion tax increase over the 2 years, I look at the lack of dedication for both these. I'm very worried that if the administration is setting itself up that just in case a $12.7 billion tax increase starts changing the economic realities of Pennsylvania, money's not there. There's a lot of wiggle room in here to say we tried to get you that, but it didn't happen. So a little worried about that. But Mr. Chairman, thank you.